Okay. Call the meeting of the Door County Board of Supervisors, August 26, 2014. Rise and repeat the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Here. Are we ready?
We're going to be ready.
We in?
Yours is not working at all.
Not working.
Ain't even even.
Yeah,
Play with the bat.
there it goes.
See?
Boy, electronic genius.
Okay.
20 present, 1 excused. Presentation of the agenda.
So moved.
Mark Miller, second by Chuck Brandt. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That has passed. Correspondence?
Have none?
Haven't any? Public comment? Anybody from the public would like to comment? There being none, we'll move on to administrative monthly report.
Yes, in your packets, on page 3 of 37 is the monthly report. It discusses the 2015 budget request. As many of you know, the finance director and I have been meeting with all of the department heads the last month, preparing the 2015 budget request for presentation to the Finance Committee on September 8th. Here's where we stand. We had net new construction of 0.63%, which will allow an increase in the levy of $147,695. An increase in debt service levy allows for an increase in the levy cap of $11,400. Adding these two amounts together will allow a levy increase of $159,095. The 2014 levy cap was at $23,443,673. If the county uses the allowable levy cap increase, the 2015 levy will go to $23,602,768. As of this writing, now this was submitted on Thursday of last week, the 2015 budget requests are over the permissible levy cap by approximately $886,432. Now, this dollar amount does not include the position requests that are before you today. You set the priorities, so if we add any of those to the request, that's okay, because you set the priorities, and we will have to adjust if we move up with that number. In addition, not included in that number are the Emergency Services Department's requests. Those are above the levy, they're exempt from the levy cap is the best way that I can describe them, but they will increase the rate. So just keep those things in mind as we move forward. As I said, the presentation of the budget will occur to the Finance Committee on September 8th. Both the Finance Director and I have spoken at great length with our Finance Committee Chair about the task ahead. It will be difficult, but nothing is insurmountable, and we'll figure out a way to get where we need to be if we all work together. So in a nutshell, that's the report for this month. Thank you.
Okay, any questions? If not, we'll move on to the minutes of July 29th. Someone like to make a motion to approve them?
So motion to approve.
Moved by Biz, seconded by Kathy. Are there any corrections or additions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is passed. See, it's almost 9:05. We have a presentation from Dan Burke from the Land Trust. You'd like to come forward? And he wondered how we'd get done with all that by 9:05. Introduce yourself and your guest, and
Yes.
you're on.
Good morning. My name is Dan Burke. I'm the Executive Director of the Door County Land Trust, and to my left is our Board of Directors President, Tim Stone. And
Good morning.
Tim will speak after me for a few minutes. And I hope you guys all had your coffee or caffeinated tea, because I do have a little presentation / talk. So first of all, I just want to thank Maureen and Dan for the opportunity to talk with you today. I've got about a 10-minute overview presentation about the Door County Land Trust and what we do and how we accomplish our work. Tim's got a couple of minutes as well, and then we'll have a couple of minutes for question and answer. So, and I've got that. So, the Door County Land Trust was founded in 1986, and we're actually one of 1,700 local land trusts that are operating in the United States today. The land trust movement began really around 1900 with some local communities getting together who were concerned about urban sprawl in the Boston area, and decided that as a community that they would get together and form a board of directors and have a private instead of a public effort to try to preserve some of the best places around the Boston area. And that land trust is actually still alive and very healthy today. The trustees of reservations, they're called. But out of that, 115 years later, we have over 1,700 local communities that got together and to form their own land trust, if you will. Some of them are state focused. Others, like ours, are county focused, and some of them are formed just to protect a particular parcel of land. But they all have one thing in common, and that is to work as a community-based organization to identify the priority needs of their community and to work on the lands that will help achieve their mission. And some of you may know a little bit about us, some of you may know a lot about us, and some of you may be in between, have maybe heard some things that people have told you about us, whether it's right or wrong or good or bad. But the one thing I do want to leave you with today is that we definitely are your partners. In reading your comprehensive plan, again, over the past few weeks, there's so many things in that plan that we could have easily have pulled right into some of our planning materials. And so, if nothing else, I hope the takeaway today is that we're your sort of private arm of your partnership and making sure that Door County is a vibrant, strong, and healthy community. So we work on, obviously, a lot of same things that most of us here are concerned with. Our mission is to preserve, maintain, and enhance lands that contribute significantly to the scenic beauty, open space, and ecological integrity of Door County. And it's sort of a three-pronged mission. So we obviously are involved in identifying the highest priority ecological sites. Door County has been studied probably more than any other county in Wisconsin in terms of researchers and ecologists and scientists. And so there's just a wealth of information about where are the highest priority ecological sites. So we use a lot of that information to drive our work on the ecology side. But on the other side of our mission is just the scenic beauty and open space, the scenic vistas, the rural character, the small town quaintness. Those are elements that are also written directly into our mission statement and things that we're directly involved with on a day-to-day basis. And one interesting thing is in the Door County Comprehensive Plan of 2009, just keeping that in mind, out of the 4 visioning sessions that were held by the community, participants in all 4 visioning meetings believe that the county's greatest assets include its natural beauty, scenery, and plentiful open space, as well as the quantity and quality of its drinking water. Rural scenic beauty was mentioned frequently and described as being both natural and pastoral in character, and the abundance of surface water, parks, and wildlife habitats greatly contributes to the county's natural beauty, as well as providing the resources for a variety of recreational opportunities. Public recreational infrastructure providing access to these areas for a variety of activities is believed to be equally valuable. So again, that's directly out of the comprehensive plan, and as you can see, it mimics quite well with our own mission statement. So how do we achieve our mission is obviously we're involved in land conservation, and there's various tools that we use to accomplish our work. One is working directly with private property owners on what are called conservation easement agreements. So we have about 65 conservation easement agreements that are on private lands, continued to be owned by the landowners. Some of them are working farms, orchards, old fields, wildlife habitat. There's a number of different types of landscapes that are protected on these privately held lands. And essentially what they are is, for instance, where we worked on a century working farm down in the town of Claybanks, in which that landowner has been farming the land since the 1800s. The conservation agreement that we wrote for that encourages the continued agricultural use of that property, but limits the amount of development that can take place out in the ag fields. So essentially trying to keep the open space character, but also trying to ensure that the land can be in agricultural use from here out forward. The other ways that we protect land are through land donations and purchases, and those are situations where we actually own and manage property. And there's a number of different reasons why we wanted to have that in our toolbox. Is for the first 10 years of our existence, from 1986 to 96, all we did was accept donated conservation easements on privately held lands. It's a fairly inexpensive way for us to operate, but one of the issues with conservation easements is there's no direct public access to those lands that are inherent into these agreements. So we started to wanting to identify the highest priority lands from ecological and scenic standpoint, and to be able to own and manage those. And that's been a push for us over the last 15 years. And in those situations, we can have a lot of public use. Every single acre we own is open to the public. We have a number of recreational opportunities I'll speak to about later. And then we can also steward those lands, manage them and restore them. We also have, obviously, once we own land, our work has really truly just begun. We spend considerable resources stewarding and managing the lands that we conserve, whether it's monitoring the conservation easements and the lands we protected, land management and restoration, and preparing our preserves, as I mentioned before, for public use. Since 1986, we've protected over 6,700 acres of Door County's finest open spaces and wild places. And this is just a mosaic of the sort of the three areas that we work in. I mentioned the Southern Door working farm, and we have a few preserves down there. Here in Sturgeon Bay, in the upper right-hand corner, the Sturgeon Bay Ship Canal Nature Preserve, which is nearly 500 acres in the city of Sturgeon Bay. The Grandview is a partnership project we worked with the town of Liberty Grove, in which we transferred ownership over to the town as a park on the left-hand side. And then on the top right is Little Lake, Washington Island's only inland lake, in which we have a nature preserve up on Washington Island as well there. This is just a little pie chart to kind of show you how our land protection is sort of divided. It's almost split in half between conservation easement agreements on privately held lands, as well as lands that we own and manage. And then the smaller parcel of those lands that we protected and working in partnership with other units of government, and in which we transfer those lands to them as a way of helping them accomplish their mission. We took the lead in actually acquiring them and protecting them, and then transferred them to them. And there's various reasons why that happens. But Grandview is a great example where it was just felt like the land trust was the most capable group to actually do the deal. But all along, the town wanted the land, and we knew that we were going to transfer it to the town of Liberty Grove. We really feel strongly that our public nature preserves are connecting our community to the outdoors. Over the past few years, we've constructed and are maintaining over 20 miles of hiking trails, and that number grows every year. We have hundreds and hundreds of folks who are out hunting and fishing and skiing and enjoying the wildlife on our preserve. We manage and coordinate a very robust hunting program, and starting to get lots of calls right now at this time of year. And we're very happy with our partnership that we have with the sportsmen who utilize our lands. And we also have a lot of our lands, all of our lands are open for education, but we do concerted efforts to get the kids out on our properties. We are partnering with the YMCA this year on their school camp program, in which hundreds of kids are out on our preserves. We've entered into a relationship with Ministry Healthcare, in which they're partnering us with call the doctor or take a hike and call me in the morning. And it's encouraging people to get outside for exercise. And we have monthly hikes that are open to the public that are well attended. They're usually all sold out. And I think we had about 500 different individuals participate in our hiking series over the past year. Again, land stewardship, a big, not only financial commitment for us, but it's also where the community comes together. We have a number of volunteers. We have about 300 volunteers that volunteer for the Land Trust in some form or fashion every year, and about 150 of them are out on our lands. It's a great way for the public and the community to kind of really get their fingernails dirty, if you will, out there planting trees, putting up, constructing trails, putting up signage, getting rid of invasive plants and animals, or not animals, but plants. Obviously, our work is quite ambitious, and it requires a lot of partnerships, and partnership is one of the great keys to our success. And I would say for the Door County's private land conservation program as a whole, partnerships is something that is our huge strength. We work hand in hand with other private groups like the Ridges and the Nature Conservancy, but we also work with many units of government, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the DNR, of course, through the State Natural Areas Program, the Door County Soil and Water Conservation Department, through like the DESIST program and conservation planning efforts. And we work with the planning department in that regards, and a lot of local units of government, in which I already mentioned a few, in which we help direct land protection efforts with them. And besides our partnerships, we can't do it alone. We are actually supported by over 2,500 individuals and businesses that provide annual gifts to us on an annual basis. Nearly 100% of our program and operations budget is supported from individual, foundation, and business donations. So we're, although we do apply for land acquisition grants from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the State Stewardship Program, all of our program and operational budget is privately funded and relies very little on grants. Again, I just want to kind of make a tie back to the comprehensive plan, and just want to read the plan's final vision statement for Door County. And it sort of resonates with some of what I'm talking about here today. In the year 2030, Door County has an exceptional quality of life preserved for both present and future generations through a sustainable balance between its economic activities, the preservation of its natural environment, and its social systems. The county's beautiful scenery and rural character are maintained through both public and private preservation of large areas of undeveloped natural and pastoral open space. People are making a living through agricultural, thus keeping rural areas in agricultural use and preserving rural character at the same time. And public access to and recreational opportunities usually utilizing green space and the water are diverse and are widespread. So again, I think that there's a very, very direct and tangible link between the work that we're doing and the visions that you've laid out and adopted here in your plan. And again, one of the takeaways that I want to leave you with here today is that we're here as a partner, and that if there's projects that you or your committees would like to accomplish that you feel like there's some overlap with what our organization is all about, you know, we are open to having that type of direct partnership as well. Out in the back, before I turn things over to Tim, I do have a few materials you're happy to grab. A guide to our places that we protect, a map of all of our hiking trails in Door County, and just an overall brochure. So feel free to take those. I'll leave them in the back, and you can grab them on your way out. I just want to put one plug in for Roy and Charlotte Lucas. Some of you may know them, but they are being honored this year as the getting a Lifetime Achievement Award down in Madison in September, and Tim and I and some others are going to be honoring them, going there to honor them. But Gathering Waters, which is a collection of all the land trusts in the state, annually give out a Lifetime Achievement Award, and this year it's going to our own Roy and Charlotte. So just wanted to put that plug in for them. With that, I will turn it over to Tim, who's got a few moments, and then maybe we'll have time for a couple question and answer.
Just a couple of thoughts or comments. Back to the map for a moment. as I mentioned to Ben earlier, this came out in the fall of 2012, and I'm incredibly proud that we gave 1,600 of these to school kids of Door County, and we've distributed free over 12,000 of these maps to anybody who wants one. We have a board of 18 men and women who are volunteers, who believe incredibly passionately and are committed to the mission statement that we have. And one of the keys to our success, and then open to questions, is that we really stay out of politics. And so we know darn well within our midst of board members, and the staff is also incredibly good. We have strong liberals, strong conservatives, but we stay out of politics. And it's amazing what we've been able to get finished and completed and done by cooperating together for a common goal. It's just been absolutely amazing. And we're very conscious of our reputation, because that's really the only thing we have. And so we have obviously audited statements. We do everything we can to stay absolutely lily white. We have conflict of interest forms that everybody we work with, including our board and committees, must sign. So with that, I'll turn it over to any questions you might have, and Dan will be happy to answer them.
I guess I can start out. One of the main questions that is always comes up when I talked to you briefly before is the impact on taxes. There's a lot of people thinking that we're preserving and eroding our tax base in Door County by taking a lot off the tax roll, but you addressed that in your form, and maybe you could just mention.
Well, it's not really sort of it's not a 30-second answer, but I can touch upon a few things. First of all, it is quite clear through state legislation that land conservation group, if they meet certain criteria, if the land's open to the public, if it protects native plants and animals, and if we're not procuring income from that property, that we have the ability to apply for tax exemption. So with that, that is the state law that was passed in 1994, I believe. And so it's like others, churches, other nonprofits that have that same type of privilege, I guess would be a good word to describe it. And I think the reason behind that legislation is that because, like in your comprehensive plan, you emphasize the need for a public-private partnership, and I think the state, through a Republican administration at that time, realized too that if we're going to meet our state goals and protecting key properties, it has to be a private partnership. And one of the reasons one of the ways they could help encourage that and leverage is through that type of legislation. So I'm not here to deny that we have not taken advantage of the state legislation. I will say that the majority of our properties do remain on the tax roll, since conservation easements are a primary way for us to continue our work. All those lands are on the tax roll, and we have a number of our properties that continue to be on the tax roll. But in those situations where we offer a high degree of what we call public value, whether we're maintaining hunting programs and hiking trails, those are situations where we do apply for tax exemption. It helps us out tremendously. Even with that, we spend about $200,000 every year on the stewardship of our own properties through our management, restoration, and delivering public use amenities. So it's it obviously helps to have the tax situation the way it is for us as an organization, and allows us to put our money towards things like offering public amenities. I will say, even in townships such as Bailey's Harbor, that has a lot of properties off their tax roll, but they do get back payment in lieu from the state-owned properties. It's amazing to me that there's still a high degree of public support, even in those communities where maybe that law is more impactful than in other communities. They just updated their comprehensive plan, or their smart growth plan, and even with the wealth of lands that have already been identified and protected, the residents again reiterated the need to continue to protect the property. And so it came out strongly. 3 of their 6 goals are still natural resource protection orientated. So the answer is yes, we do have property off the tax roll, but I also think that there's a real high degree of benefit that the community receives from having these lands protected.
I'd like to comment just to say I've done a number of public presentations for the Door County Land Trust, and the question does come up. But the question typically has gone away in these different presentations I've done when I say that land that used to be private and was not available to the public, land that we own now is open to the public for hunting, fishing, trapping, cross-country skiing, So the people in the audience, that really resonated with them because it was private before. They couldn't go on it. But once we own it, it's open to the public. And that's a big impact up here. Any other questions?
Go ahead, Susan. Or you can, go ahead.
Sometimes we get a letter, or in our correspondence or whatever, that will say that there is a property on Washington Island or front of Bailey's Harbor that's going to be coming under the Knowles
Knowles Nelson Stewardship
Right,
Fund.
Stewardship Fund. Does that mean that that property is something that you've identified as you'd like to acquire or you'd like to preserve and you've applied and now this is the grant coming? Or is there somebody in Madison deciding that this property
No,
is?
well, it's mainly what you're saying, but it's not necessarily the Door County Land Trust. If a unit of government, if the Nature Conservancy, the Ridges, they can all apply for stewardship funding. So when a grant is applied for, part of the application process is then a notification to the county as well as the local unit of government where the property is located, and they'll be informed that there is an application in place to use the state stewardship fund grant money. I don't know if the state is the one acquiring it, whether they have to put that notice out too. I would think they would because they're using state stewardship funds and that's a requirement of the fund itself. So it could be a unit of government, it could be the state, it could be a local conservation group, but it is an application at that point for funds. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess first off, I want to thank your group for supporting the county the way that you have in the past for adding on to some of our properties and helping us look at different properties. And I guess just for the board to explain just a little bit that you have access to some of the grants that we cannot apply for. So when we work in partnership, it's a two-way street.
Yes, the State Stewardship Fund has two sides to it. One is the LUG grant, local units of government, in which local units of government and the county can apply. That's a different pot of money within the State Stewardship Fund as the grants program, which is only available to the nonprofit conservation groups. And what has happened over the last few state budgets is the amount of money that's available for units of government to purchase lands has been quite, just to use the word, slashed. And the money that goes to the private conservation groups that level is maintained constant. And again, I think that's the way for the state legislator to say, we want this to be a private public partnership and to encourage the private entities to get involved. And I think that the reason being is that they're concerned at the state level about the management that goes with lands that they would acquire. And of course, when we acquire lands, stewardship and management is our responsibility. So, but you're absolutely right. We have a pot of money that the local units of government would not have available to it. And so, and so we have worked to help, as long as it meets one of our priorities, and if it meets a local units of government priority, we can partner on those type of situations.
This is probably nothing new to you, but the DNR has advised us, again, probably nothing new to you, but Door County is the most ecologically diverse of all 72 counties. And of course, Door County in itself is a brand. I can't think of any other of the 71 counties that's known by its name as Door County is. It's not Dane County particularly, or Langlade or Vilas. This county is really known. But the fact that this county is so ecologically diverse, we have an opportunity to be able to be rated pretty high to be able to get funds, whether it's U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund. It helps a lot that this is such a unique county.
Yeah, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Door County, when we apply for a grant to that grant source, we are going against saltwater marshes of the Carolinas and the coasts of Alaska. And here in Door County, we're out competing them in many of these grants because of the rare and endangered plants and animals that are found along the coastlines here. So we're able to bring in money that before we started working with the Nature Conservancy and other groups here was primarily all going to the east and west coasts, and we've been able to focus attention here on the Great Lakes and bring some of that U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant money right here to Door County.
Anything else?
Yeah, Don?
Yes, I'm wondering if you can share with us any future properties that you might be looking into to acquire?
Well, I can talk broadly and then specifically. Right now, there's an effort, a number of groups are getting together right now, including the County Planning Department, Soil and Waters participating, Land Trust, Nature Conservancy, DNR, and going through putting all of information together to, again, come up with a fresh map of highlighting the highest priority for water quality, groundwater protection, coastal breeding bird habitat, and forests, and kind of putting all that together and coming up with a ranking of where are the hot spots left that remain in Door County. So there's that long-term sort of effort going on. Short-term, we're working in partnership with for instance, the Chambers Island has come to us, and they have a 1,000-acre contiguous forest along Lake McCasey that they're very interested in seeing what can be done to protect the integrity of that forest and keep it a working forest. And so we're working hand in hand with the Chambers Island Landowner Association and the Town of Gibraltar, and the County Parks Department was involved early on in those discussions. So that's a big focus area of ours right now. We have about 7 properties that we're looking to close within the next year. Some of them are land donations that will establish brand-new nature preserves, and others are expanding existing sites. One of our, if you could see our map, we have a number of preserves, and they're expanding some of those sites.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, thank you for the.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
I think there's one.
I guess just one more follow-up, and Don would know this best from Bailey's Harbor. I guess just to show what our parks generate and what your preserves generate, it's not just the public access for the locals, but you generate a lot of outside activity. Because I think, Dan, was it like over 40,000 people go to Caney Island every year?
Correct.
And Don, you might know how many people go through the ridges, but I mean, there are a lot of people that are drawn to our county just for those specifics.
As someone who moved here, I mean, like so many others, we're drawn by the incredible natural beauty of this place, and then you get up here and find out what really goes on, and the amazing people Door County attracts. Astonishing, amazing people that want to get involved. There's something like 350
400.
nonprofits. I mean, a huge number, and for the most part, they're all supported very nicely, even through the recession. When you read in the paper, there are a lot of nonprofits all over the country struggling in the recession, but up here, they all got pretty decent support, which is amazing. It's an amazing place. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Moving on to pending business, resolution 2014-58. Biz, would you like to make a motion and we'll get a second and you can discuss it?
Yeah, in regards to resolution 2014-58 amended, I'll make a motion that we approve this amended resolution.
I'll second.
Seconded by Charles. You want to explain it? Or
Yeah, this
Eric?
is a petition to the Secretary of Transportation for airport improvement aid by Door County Chairland Airport, Door County, Wisconsin. Lines 41 through 44 are highlighted on your Zoom of the correction. When the airport manager submitted this to Bureau of Aeronautics, he used the template from last year, and unknowing to him, that wording was not in there, and they caught it and got a hold of him and said that, you know, you need to make an amendment to this. This resolution was passed at our last month's county board meeting, and the wording now for the amendment is before you, and we're just voting on again on this resolution as amended.
Are there any questions on the amendment then? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. David Enigo, you want to explain and make a motion to approve resolution 2014-73?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2014-73, approve of agreement with Photometry International Corporation for digital orthophotography services.
Seconded by Mark Miller. Go ahead and
This is a
explain.
continuation of the aerial views that they take every 2 years roughly for the GIS system. This will actually be, the first half of this is for 2015, the second half will be 2017.
We went with two in a row contract because it'll save us some money in the long run.
Okay, are there any questions? If not, we'll go to the voter board and, oh, you look a lot brighter. Go to the voter board and vote yes or no on this, please. That is passed in a vote of 20 yes, 1 absent. Next item is the non-budgeted funds of Justice Center. David Lino, you want to make a motion and get a second, and we'll...
I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2014-74, transfer of non-budgeted funds to complete the Justice Center computer room air conditioning for the second unit.
Second it.
Seconded by Don City. Would you like to explain that?
For the 2014 CIP, we approved a air conditioning upgrade to the Justice Center cooling room. We find that with the equipment we have there and additional equipment that's being added, it's in our best interest to add a second unit. So this covers the second unit to be installed at the same time and get that completed. So as we go through 2015 and forward, as we add new equipment, we won't need to continue to upgrade the air conditioning requirement. And that's in the amount of $76,053.
Are there any questions? If not, this will require a 2/3 vote, so we'll go to the voter board and vote yes or no. Ready? Of course. That is passed in a vote of 20 yes, 1 absent. Next item is a committee appointment. This is for the CATS committee, to fill Ken Meyer's position, and it was recommended that I appoint Howie Hathaway. I think Mark Miller is the one that recommended that person.
Yes, and I'll move to approve.
Okay, seconded by Don City. Does anybody have any questions? There's bios in the... If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, that is passed. Next one is the new positions request. Kelly, you want to come forward and explain some of them? Now, this is an entire resolution. Someone will make a motion and we'll amend it as we go if we have to. Make a motion by David Lino, second by Joel Gunlickson. I don't know if we want to, I don't know just how to handle them. Explain them all, and then we'll talk about them each separately, or just go right down the list like you did at admin.
Okay.
And finance, by the way.
Okay. The positions that were brought forward this year were from the department heads. All the appropriate materials were submitted to me and provided to the county administrator. The public health is asking for a .8, an additional day for an existing nurse position. There's a reclassification from human services of an office assistant to an administrative 3 position. There are new positions for the ADRC for a part-time office assistant at .4. The ADRC is also asking for an information and assistant specialist, another part-time position, and a social worker for the Child and Family Services unit. Emergency Services is asking for 6 full-time paramedics, and the Information Systems Department is asking for an administrative assistant 2 at 25 hours a week, or .63 part-time.
Okay. Now, this has gone through the Finance and Admin Committee, and it was passed unanimously. I guess there might be some questions on a few of these that could be readjusted over to the next 3 or 4 or 5 months. I guess, go ahead, David.
Can I make a comment, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
I guess I would want to point out that this position summary that's being asked for is being put into the budget. The budget still has to go through a number of other steps, and so this is a way for it to get into the point where finance can take a look at this and finance committee can review it. And until this occurs, we can't do anything with this.
Okay.
So this is part of the process of getting it into the budget, and then determine if and how and when we can pay for it, or if we could pay for it.
Okay. I also have 2 letters here, one from Doug Smith and one from Brian Swanson, strongly supporting the EMS people. Just so that's on record that they did send a letter. We can ask questions now. We have the department heads back here that can answer questions. Otherwise, we can pass it, as David says, and take its normal path to be put in the budget or taken out the budget as we're going on through the process. Kathy?
Dan, Kelly, do you have any recommendations regarding these on the resolution?
Yes, I would like to see a couple of the positions, specifically in the Public Health Department and Information Systems Department, reviewed and looked at, and really would like to see maybe some cross-training reviewed and see what we can do with our current workforce.
Okay, is there any other questions? John?
Just for clarification, if we pass this, does that mean that the Finance Committee can act some of these positions, or does the county board have a chance to come back and act some of these positions?
Yes, the county board has an opportunity up to the very last moment of passing the budget to axe those positions.
So the county board will again have a,
Yes.
I can't say it, but I want to say,
Yes.
down the street with the cat.
Until that final motion, when we make the motion that the tax levy is going to be such and such and such and such, until that is passed, it can always be readjusted before then. So the answer is yes, it can. Whether the finance committee is going to take a close look, because what's going to happen is I'm just throwing a number out there, a sizable number of money over the levy limit that they're going to have to act something someplace somehow, or do something, and that's up to the finance committee to figure that out. And David, I don't know if you want to mention that number. It's a large number, and it's...
Well, at the moment, it's about $860,000 that we're currently over the levy limit.
Correct.
And if you add that to what we took from the unassigned fund balance last year, it's about a $1.1 million budget shortfall at the moment. But as I said, this is a way to get it into the budget, and this is solidifying the request of the budget so that we can take a look at what the overall budget number is over the next 2 months, and we can then determine where we need to cut, where we need to move, how we need to come up with the funding, and what can stay and what can't. And finance, of course, will come back with the final recommendations to the county board, and the county board will make the final decision.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Biz?
Well, I think it should be mentioned, the big ticket item here obviously is the emergency services, the 6 paramedics being over $500,000. But that is because of past rules or laws that's exempt from the levy, that we can
That's
raise
correct.
taxes to cover that?
That's correct. That's not in the 900,000 that he just mentioned.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Is there any other questions? Kathy?
The only question I have is, these positions are not going to get lost in the budget, are they? I mean, are they still looked at separately? I mean,
Yes.
they aren't going to be just under the salary of whatever department.
Correct. That the finance committee, the all-important, smart finance committee is going to figure that all out.
I just don't want it to be,
David?
intermingled, and you never find it.
Kelly, how would you recommend that we review those other 2 positions that you're talking about as far as co-training?
How would I recommend that you review the positions?
What's the appropriate way to accomplish that?
Usually through the department head, working very closely with me throughout a good 6-month period of time where we can review the work, how long it takes to do the work, and are there better ways to get that work done?
So is that even feasible before the budget comes around?
We don't have a 6-month period before that budget, so.
But the finance committee is going to ask those questions of her as they proceed, I would hope.
I guess my interest would be to see if we have to get something going now in order for us to have a reasonable conversation at finance.
That would be appropriate, yes. But the idea of David is leave it in now and let the finance
Well,
committee.
I agree, but she's given
Yeah.
us a timeline of 6 months as a typical way of handling it, which...
Correct.
Right.
Mark, you had one?
He asked my question.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll go to the voter board and vote yes or no on this.
Okay, hold on.
Hold on.
You guys are
I thought you were way ahead. No? Yes, mother. That is passed on a vote of 20 yes, 1 absence. Next item is the amendment to the Door County Administrative Manual and Code. There again, someone would like to make a motion to pass it so we can discuss it?
I'll make the motion, Mr.
David,
Chairman.
make a motion. Is there a second by David
Second.
Anigo? Motion by David Lino. Go ahead, Kelly, you're on the hook for this one.
Okay, I'll just briefly walk you through each of the recommended amendments. The first one being in the handbook for the introductory period. This language was cleaned up to be in a broader perspective and not name a 6-month or a 12-month because we have varying introductory periods.
Aren't we
The
gonna
proposed, pardon?
Transfer of funds first?
Yeah.
Pardon, what?
We're working on the transfer of funds.
We're on the
first.
crisis
Skipped a
premium.
resolution,
Or did I
think.
skip one?
Yeah.
Yep, 2014-77.
Yep, the crisis premium.
Crisis premium.
Oh, okay. Oops. We'll back up a second here.
It's page 27 of the...
Yes.
So are we going...
Let's, since we have a motion on the floor now, let's go to, we have a deviation from agenda can be made, so we deviated and went to 2014-78.
No.
Which motion which amendment?
I motion for 2014-77, the crisis premium.
And I
Oh, okay.
seconded that.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
go ahead and explain it.
We're keeping you straight.
We're doing okay.
We're okay. We gotta make it last till 10 o'clock. Do you want to explain it, David, then? Did you make the motion there?
I'll try.
Okay.
As you are aware, there are some employees that work in the Human Services Department that, as a result of changes that were made from Act 10 and our new administrative manual, there were some changes made with pay and compensation with regards to what they were received for carrying pagers and responding on weekend calls. They often spend many, many hours on weekends. Recently, one person was called out for 16 hours on a weekend. Another time they were called out 10 to 12 hours. It happens routinely. As a result of that, Human Services asked the Admin Committee and Finance Committee to approve a additional compensation for those individuals. And those individuals at the admin meeting was approved some administrative time, which you'll see in the following resolution. But we also approved upping the pager pay, the amount that they receive per day for carrying the pager to $100 per day. And this resolution covers that $100 a day increase, makes it effective immediately, and that's why there's a request for the transfer of, I think it's $24,400 from the contingency fund into that department so that they can pay that on-call, increased on-call pay through the end of the year.
Go ahead, Susan.
Just to clarify, it's also for weekdays, is it not?
Correct.
I mean, because they do
Correct, yes,
carry
yes,
that
correct.
pagers 24 hours.
Anybody, John?
What do we do when this don't solve the problem?
Cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay?
I guess that's the best answer I can give. We hope it solves the problem. So, anybody else? If not, we'll go to the voter board and vote for this one. This one takes a majority, doesn't it?
Two-thirds. No, it's wrong.
Oh, it's wrong, it takes 2/3 vote, but anyway, I don't think there's any problem. Okay, that is passed 20 yes, 1 absent. Now the next one is the resolution for the amending the manual. Is there a motion to make that? Somebody want to make a motion to pass so we can get it on discussion?
I'll
Ben?
make a motion to pass.
Is there a second? Seconded by Susan.
Something like that.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Okay.
Explain, take them one at a time and explain them and.
I'll continue down after the first introductory period for the handbook. The second is an update for the handbook on the holiday section to include part-time. Initially, that had not been included. The second portion goes into the administrative manual. And this is for the creation and classification of positions. The first part, again, is to update the introductory period. Before the Highway and the Administrative Committee was a proposal to increase the Highway to a 12-month introductory period. So that has been included in this language. County property, this is an additional section just to clarify that when it's distributed, how it's distributed, and that it needs to be returned. On page 29, you have employee compensation, and that is the special pay crisis premium language that David just spoke about. The next section is 2.10, paid time off. Again, jury duty, this is just additional language to go into the administrative manual. The practice has been in place for a long time. Another addition to this section are the administrative hours that David just spoke about for the crisis unit. 2.15 is the expense reimbursement procedure, just to add the word designee so that in the larger departments, the department head isn't always signing. 2.17, unpaid leaves of absence. This is the section that was approved by the Administrative Committee for the leave of absence without pay, service as an elected county or state officer. On the next page, 30 of your packet, 2.19, separation from employment. Exit interview is new language to follow what the Administrative Committee has requested. And 3.0, hours of work. The ADRC, or the Aging and Disability Resource Center, has increased their hours for customer service purposes and are now working 4/10s, but still doing it 5 days a week by sporadically scheduling their staff. That concludes the additions to the amendments. Any questions?
There are no questions. If not, go to the voter board and vote yes or no. John, you got to confirm. I did. Mark Miller abstained, passed 19 and 1 absent. Thank you. Next item is there are no ordinances. The special report is done. Is there any no new business that I know of? Any oral committee reports? Is anybody have any questions on the minutes of the committees? Anybody have any questions on the bills, claims and bills? If not, a couple announcements. The shirts are in Jill's office, plus directories if someone would like a directory from the last session. If not, the next county board meeting, remember, it got moved from September 30th to September 30th at 9 a.m. The reason being is the convention coming up. The administrative committee agreed, although we didn't take a vote. I guess the rules say I can make the decision, but they unanimously agreed to move the meeting to September 30th, 2014 at 9 o'clock. Motion to adjourn. What, Don?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Go ahead. I didn't know if that was, okay, is there a second? Second by John Burr. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're closed.